Good morning, ladies and jellyfish. Hope I find you well today and, surviving. Thriving is the best word for it, isn't it? Hope you had a good weekend and, made the most of whatever it is that you did. Nothing to tell you, really, other than, just we're going to get on today and sort of get on a new topic and that. We're going to do training and appraisal today. So not, the most crazy bit of theory ever made or anything like that or that, and a lot of you will have had a first-hand experience with this, which is good because I always find that's the easiest way of remembering stuff, don't you? And then we'll have a look at the news. I should get that ready, really. I'll just pop that on here. And then we'll have a look at the news, see what's going on in Borisville. Everything. That's one thing, though, isn't it? Before we actually get into that, the speculation of things at the minute is getting out of hand. Do you not think? Like, like people just saying, "Oh yeah, the lockdown's going to do this, lockdown's going to do that. We're going to do this, we're going to do that," and you think, "Goodness me." There's a hell of a lot of speculation going on at the minute, isn't there? But anyway, we're not going to let that bring us down. We're going to get into some theory today and get some stuff done. All right. Okay, we're ready to go. Let's do it. Oh no, I've set it up to be the wrong one. It's all right. It's okay. I wondered why it was being a bit weird today. Because usually what I do is I have one for the PowerPoint which goes on there, and then I have one for the news which goes on there, slightly more. But anyway, it's okay. It doesn't make any difference really. So, people in organisations is what we're going to be talking about today. And I will try and keep it short and sweet because I know that you love my my shorter videos. Who am I kidding? You love it when I'm rattling on for hours, don't you? So let's have a little look at it. All right, here we go. So first things first, let's have a look at what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about these things. We're going to talk about explain what is meant by training. We're going to explain the role of training in developing appropriate skills. We're going to explain the different methods of training, including induction, on the job, off the job, and apprenticeships. Evaluate the importance of impact of training for a business and its stakeholders. So again, same thing that we always do. What it is, how it works in reality, apply it to a couple of situations, and then have a look at the stakeholders. Okay? So, what is training then? Lots of us will have had formal training. In this country, you've got a really, really strong education system, which people are legally, not only legally entitled to, but legally bound to a large extent because of especially when you're younger, the expectation that you will go to school, and if you don't go to school, it's classed as neglect, really, unless you've got a comprehensive homeschooling setup and things like that, which I think a lot of people are actually realising isn't that sensible when they're trying to do it now. I know there are some parents who successfully do it, but for the average Joe, they are quite shackled to our our education system. But it's good, it works, doesn't it? And we have arguably one of the most successful education systems in the world. A lot of people are quite jealous of the UK system, so we're very lucky to have it and things like that, aren't we? We've won the lottery of life to be in it, but not only that, you start getting trained from when you were very, very young all the way up till 18 now is the requirement for you to be in education, and you know how I feel about that. A lot of what the change was for, the 16 to 18 change of requiring people to be in education was a lot to do with that. Was about unemployment records and things like that, wasn't it? Rather than actually getting people skilled with stuff. But yeah, what can you do? That's the stakeholder thing, isn't it? That's reality. We've got to understand business concepts in reality rather than just looking at them as, in La La Land, it's like this. No, let's look at it in reality and actually talk about it in perspective and things like that. It says, the process of increasing knowledge and skills of workers so that they are better able to perform their jobs. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Because if that is training, and we're training you from a very young age, then it's exactly what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to make you better at your job, better at your new job, your potential job, your future job. We're trying to make you into that, that perfect worker, aren't we, really? To be useful to society, there's no point of having loads of people who are uneducated and unable to do work. So, keep that in mind when you're doing it. It's not a big conspiracy. That's exactly what it's for. If you thought education was for something else, then it doesn't really make sense to do that, does it? Training provides workers with knowledge and skills which enable them to perform their jobs effectively. Modern theories of motivation argue that training is one of the keys to successful motivation of workers. Without training, workers are unlikely to reach their potential and feel let down by their employers. Important, and we're going to talk about motivation again very soon. I was going to talk about it today, actually, because I think motivation is a really poignant thing to talk about at the minute because of the current situation. I know people are feeling down and people are feeling like it's hard to find some get up and go to do things. But it's it is hard not having a teacher breathing down your neck or a parent breathing down your neck saying what you're doing. But it's a requirement, isn't it? It's something that we've got to learn to be able to do, is self motivate and get out and do things of our own accord if you want to be successful. Training's all about getting these people on board, making sure that they have the right skills to be able to do the job effectively. Because remember, if we don't do the job effectively, there's very, very serious concerns, isn't there? Grave consequences for our businesses, especially in this day and age when there's so easy to bash us on social media and make a big fool of the business and stuff like that. I can't show a couple of videos on here because as I said, that I'll get taken down off YouTube. There's a weird thing that they do, but I'll link them in the description anyway, and you can have a look at these anyway. All right. So let's have a look at this. So this is your first task of the day. This is what I'd like you to do. Really, really simple. You can pause the stream, have a go at it. It's not going to take too long. But complete the spider diagram outlining the objectives of training. Okay, so what is training for? And I want you to make it as big and as wide as you can, and put as much detail in there as you can. So he says all businesses need to have workers with skills that ensure that the production or provision of the service is the best quality possible. So I want you to use these as sort of the quality, flexibility, motivates. When we go through them in a second, I want you to use them as sort of like little subheadings that come off the spider diagram, and then you can talk around that about the importance of it or the consequences of not doing it, or maybe a little bit of AO4 and situations where you think it would be more or less important. Okay, it says. Training workers creates flexibility. Workers are now able to adapt and change more easily and contribute more to the business. It's really important, isn't it? We've talked about multi-skilling workers. It combats absenteeism. It helps with capacity utilisation, that kind of stuff. Training motivates, thereby allowing workers to reach their potential and fully contribute to the business. A lot to do with the mental capacity, the sort of mental state of the workforce and how they react to training, and it feels, doesn't it? A lot of it is to do with how it feels to be trained, how it feels to be invested in. I know a lot of people say, don't they, that they're fed up with education because it's forced on them. But if you're in a foreign country and you'd have to pay a hell of a lot of money, and it's not like someone isn't paying for it, because someone isn't there. You will be paying it off for the rest of your lives through taxation and things like that. But if you were in a foreign country and you didn't automatically get the right to have education, people would be chomping at the bit trying to get to it, wouldn't they? And yet it's interesting that because it's given to people as a given, as a and not only given to them but forced on them to an extent, then the love of learning, the things like that is not prevalent in the UK a lot of the time, because people see it as an inconvenience rather than a massive blessing. Job enrichment and job enlargement can be implemented if the workers are given the right training. Do you remember these two? So one's about making the job better, making the job more interesting, and another one is about sort of changing it up, having more parts to the job, having a range of skills, multi-skilling the people so they can do a range of different things. It says training can assist in retaining high-quality staff who might otherwise leave. Really important point that. Yeah, it's hard to keep the best people because they're always looking around the corner at the next best thing. If it's not just money, it might be opportunities. If it's not opportunities, it might be training. If it's not training, it might be, it could be a range of things, couldn't it? But it is a real difficulty to keep the best people on board. Training can also be helpful when recruiting, as potential employees might be attracted by opportunities offered. Okay, so that is your spider diagram. That's the way I want you to start with those basic things there and then sort of offshoot off them. Just before we move on though, when we're talking about things like motivation, remember back to your motivation theories. Can you remember what they are? Bring them in. One thing that's really important is that you don't differentiate in your mind about different theories being about different things. Oh no, this question's about training, so therefore I'm not going to talk about motivation theory. I'm not going to talk about this. I'm not going to talk about that. But that's the opposite of what you should be doing. What you should be doing is thinking, right, I'm going to cherry pick the best bits, the most appropriate bits of the spec, bring them all together, and then use them in my answer. And that's the perfect. If you wanted to write a perfect answer, then that would be spot on, because you're going, right, well, I've actually got X, Y, and Z here. I've already got these things. I've already thought about them. But also I've got this, and this from around the spec, because they're going to be the best. That's what it's testing you, isn't it? The actual exam is testing whether you know around the spec and whether you know a range of things, whether you can bring that information together, because that's the hardest thing to do. All right. So yeah, use the spider diagram on that. Let's move on. So types of training. Let's go into types of training to begin with. What are they? Well, the first one's called induction training. A lot of this you will have already done if you've got a part-time job. If you've not had a part-time job yet, then you will have some of this when you start your part-time job. Now, when I talk to my students about this, they've had a range of different part-time jobs. They've had everything from, massive on-the-job loads of training, and then you've got people who've had practically no training and they just go in and do it, and it depends on the organisation and the seriousness of your position, really. And interestingly enough, the higher you go, the less training you get, really, because they assume you already know what you're doing. I think a lot of students think that when you go and get jobs, especially going jobs and proper jobs, more professional jobs, that they train you how to do the job, but it's not true. They assume you know what you're doing. You wouldn't have gone for the job if you didn't know what you were doing. They'll train you to an extent to use a system online or something like that, but they're not teachers. They're not there to teach you how to do the job, unless it's something that you've never done before, in which case, why have you gone for the job in the first place? So it's a weird one. There's an element of training, but induction is a lot of the time where it caps out, really. So it says, delivers at the start of a new job with a business. It ensures that workers settle in and become productive more quickly. Aspects included in induction, and there's a range of different things, that are actually in the induction process that are included in this. But a lot of things, if you ever think about the things which you might need for an induction plan. Showing you around the office, introducing you to people, showing you how to get onto the computers, making sure that you have access to stuff. If it was something like a restaurant or something, they'd show you where things are and how what the process is. So it's all about those processes and understanding what the procedures are, what the expectations are on you as an employee, really. Yeah, it's needed, but a lot of the time businesses don't take advantage of this to the extent which they should, really. Okay, so a couple of different types of training we've got. All right, first of all, it says learning by doing. Okay, it's also known as on-the-job training. And on-the-job training is physically being on the job, so actually starting the job, being actually in the workplace, doing the job to an extent with someone with you and going, this is how you do this is how you do that. So training employees shown or taught how to complete tasks by a more experienced worker. And most of you who've got part-time jobs now will have done on-the-job training, will have gone and stood with someone and they show you how to, work the bar or, work the till or, whatever it is. Takes place in the workplace, mentoring, job rotation, apprenticeship schemes, and graduate training schemes are all they're a combination usually. So you've got on-the-job training and off-the-job training with your apprenticeships and your graduate training schemes and things like that. Okay. Now, in terms of this, just to mention at this time, apprenticeships. We're going to talk about apprenticeships in a second, but apprenticeships, training schemes, and things like that. I always encourage my students to go for these things. To try and get something sorted for the end of college so that you're ready to go. But it still applies when you're applying for jobs and things like that. The worry is for me now is because we're living in this crazy time at the minute. And as I said, hello to you who are watching this in the future. I hope everything's gone back to normal. But the job market will be very, very different than it is right now. If when we go back to any form of normality. So the idea that apprenticeships were really easy to get, I mean, I don't believe that. I don't think it is. And students tell me all the time, oh, I'm going to get an apprenticeship. And you think that's like saying, oh, I'm going to go and get a really good job. Oh, why are there really good jobs available? Yeah, they're really, really easy to get. All right, well, spot on then if it's that easy to get them. I don't know what, usually I've found that if the most valuable things in life are quite hard to get, but obviously if it's so easy to get one, they know more about it than I do because I don't go and look into it. But I think we're living in a different time. I think the worry is that jobs like working in a supermarket, frontline workers at the minute doing quite basic stuff in terms of stacking shelves or whatever it is, are quite easy to get now. But the annoying thing is, or the worrying thing is, that the job market is going to be completely different on the other side of this. And realistically, it's going to be much harder to get a job, a career. For people who are in education, I would say stay there for now, even if you're dead enthusiastic to leave. Even if you think, oh yeah, I'll go and work at the supermarket. Well, yeah, that's probably the peak of what you're going to do then. Because remember, education or training, it isn't a guarantee of getting a better job. It just stacks the cards in your favour. It just gives you an added advantage. It just gives you a competitive advantage against other things. We know, don't we, that businesses aren't guaranteed to be successful, even if they are the most well-equipped, even if they have got the best products, even if they've got the best marketing. It's not a guarantee, because nothing guarantees success. It's the same in education and training, isn't it? It doesn't guarantee success, even if you've been to Oxford or Cambridge. It doesn't guarantee you've got the job. It'll get you the interview, probably, but it doesn't guarantee you the job. Well, that's the problem, isn't it? So I don't mean to go off on a rant on it, but I just think that it's really important to raise that fact at this moment in time that, please be sensible about decision making and things like that. Don't be putting all your eggs in one basket and then throw the basket off a bridge. Because once you've left education, it's very difficult to get back. People say, don't they? Oh, well, I'll go to night school and stuff like that, but real life gets in the way. I couldn't do a degree now. I know some people are doing master's degrees and stuff like that, but it's very difficult for them, and I'm not willing to do that. For what reason? There's a point at which education stops being quite profitable. So, me, Mr. Businessman likes his dollar. So mentoring, remember what mentoring is. Mentoring is usually when you get someone more senior in the business who will look after you, sort of answer questions and things like that. They don't mother you, but they will help you out. Job rotation, where you go and try a range of different jobs, get to know people in the place. Apprenticeships and graduate schemes are slightly different, aren't they? But we'll have a look at them. So, advantages of on-the-job training: no disruption to the workplace through worker absence. Really, really important, that, isn't it? Low cost, because you've already got the people there. Training is directly relevant to the job as well, so it's a really good one. Have you noticed that that's one of the big things that people say about education, especially primary and secondary education, more secondary? They say, well, I'm never going to need this. I'm never going to need this, and it's a core misunderstanding of what education is for, of why they say that. But yeah, a big thing for them is to say, well, why do I need all this information? Why have I got Pythagoras? I'm never going to use this. Why are you teaching me this stuff? Why aren't you and there's an argument for some stuff that we should be taught, like how to apply for a mortgage and how to manage your finances and stuff, and they don't teach you that, do they? They teach you what's on the spec of English or maths or whatever it is. So I can definitely see the argument for it. But I think it's important to remember that why you're there. Like in this, even if you're asked to do something that doesn't look like it's directly linked to the job, they might want you to know the history of the company or something like that, and you might think, well, why do I need to know that? The point is, it's just trying to get a more rounded sort of feeling about it, isn't it? And a better quality of employee. Okay, disadvantages of on-the-job training, though. Management time is spent planning the training. It is an important point, especially for you're going to have to take people off the shop floor essentially to be able to do it. I don't mean directly off the shop floor, but they won't be able to focus exactly on what they're doing because they're going to have to be teaching you, so they're not going to be half as efficient as they would have been usually, even if they are currently doing the job and you're helping them. It's not going to be as efficient as usually as if they were doing the job spot on. Management time is spent doing the training. It's an important one, isn't it? And you might say, well, I've had someone who isn't a manager helping me with my on-the-job training, and that's fine, but you usually have a manager who's watching over it. They don't just usually say, such and such a body will show you what to do. Thanks very much. They do sometimes, but that's not the idea. Potential reduction in the quality of output as trainees are completing work as well, and mistakes will be made, won't they? Okay, so second one's off the job training. So we've had our on the job training, actually going in and actually physically doing the job. Off the job training, employees attend college and study for qualifications such as an MVQ or an MBA. So professional qualifications, masters, MVQs, and things like that. You can kind of do a little bit on, a little bit off. My brother-in-law's just finished doing a degree course that was very much like this. So he was working for a football club as well as doing his college work as well, or his university work at the same time. It says, or through the use of internal in-house courses, structures directly through the needs of the business. We have that. So at college and at different colleges that I've worked at, we have internal in-house courses. They will send you on external ones if you want, and I've been on them. But the vast majority of the time, they want you to, you can't do. It's a difficult one teaching because you kind of do some on-the-job training and you kind of do some off-the-job. A lot of people will have had student teachers. That's on-the-job training, isn't it? A lot of you, but then again, there will have been off-the-job training as well. The student teachers will then go to a classroom and learn with other teachers, teach training and stuff like that. All right. Advantages: a wider range of skills and gathered input of new ideas into the workplace and things like that. They're two really good points, aren't they? So we can actually get people's opinions on stuff, and we can get them involved in stuff. We can do a higher level of input education than we could have done if we'd have just brought them in and done it. Employees gain worthwhile qualifications as well. Now this can be a double-edged sword, because if you give them a worthwhile qualification, they might see the fact that they could go and work somewhere else, so potentially that is an issue. But also, it can be really good for motivation as well. So on the positive side, people going, oh, actually, you know what? I'm dead excited about this because I'm working on my MBA or I'm working on my MVQ and my business, my place of work is fronting the cost of it for me or letting me do it and things like that. And it really makes people more likely to stay with the business because they feel like you're investing in them. So it's really good. So double-edged sword though, you might be skilling people up to the point where they leave. Disadvantages: lost production and disruption to the workplace when employees are absent. Remember, we're always trying to minimise absenteeism, and this one's directly encouraging absenteeism, usually once a week at least. Actual costs of the courses can be quite expensive. We know how expensive education is in this country. $9,500 a year or whatever for university courses. Now it's getting quite expensive, isn't it? Workers may seek to use their qualifications to seek better employment elsewhere, as we just said. Now, third one is apprenticeships. Our apprenticeships used to be the main way of getting into things, and I think that they've become more and more like this again. So when you talk to your gran or you talk to your dad or whatever it is, and you ask about apprenticeships, they usually say, "Oh, well, I did my apprenticeship in blah blah blah," and they're usually in quite physical subjects as well. Engineering, woodwork, that kind of stuff. But it's usually a physical skill that they're trying to develop when they got the job. There was a bit of a dip in the middle of it, so we had this big boom in apprenticeships and stuff, then a bit of a dip, and then more apprenticeships, sort of modern apprenticeships that they were trying to push more recently. The government are coming up with all sorts of stuff at the minute, trying to, get people into work and things like that, although simultaneously claiming that everyone's in work. Or they were doing before this whole thing kicked off. So it's a weird one, that, isn't it? So apprenticeships, what is it? A person who works for another in order to learn and become qualified in a specific trade. Now, positives and negatives to the employer. That it's really good for them. It allows them to get new staff in, train them up exactly the way they want them in, and sometimes getting people who are untrained is better because you can train them in your way of doing things rather than trying to untrain them in a past way of doing something. You've got like a blank sheet to go on, whereas. But negative wise, can be expensive, can be annoying to sort of put them through these kind of things. But also advantage for the employer is you're able to pay them practically nothing. Employee wage, it's like £3 an hour or something crazy. So a lot of businesses do take advantage of this. You've got to be careful about these apprenticeships that you go on because they're not all legit and they're not all as real as they seem. Essentially, I've heard some real horror stories and met some students actually who had horror stories where they've been told that they were doing an apprenticeship, but it's actually a big con. and they were just trying to get them to do very, very cheap labour to do things. He says apprenticeships are formal agreements between an employer and a young employee that commits the employer to facilitate training and workplace experience for the employee. This will lead to a recognised qualification that is accepted throughout the relevant industry. All apprentices are paid a wage which is dependent on age. Really, really ridiculous. Really, really ridiculous wages are usually apprenticeships. Really, really terrible wages. Businesses that run modern apprenticeships, which are provided by the government, receive a subsidy for each apprentice on the scheme. I wonder why they're doing them then. A lot of the time it's to get that subsidy, isn't it? So they can usually make a little profit on it. That's why businesses want to bring people in. And think about it from your perspective as a business person yourself now. If I could say to you, yeah, okay, you might be, 16 to 19 watching this potentially, and you might be thinking, well, no, that's taking advantage of people. I wouldn't do that. But if you were thinking of yourself as a business owner, let's say put yourself to, 25 and you think, well, actually, I'm a business owner and I want to be getting some workforce in. Would you get some apprentices in? Because I don't know. I mean, there's an argument for them being they're enthusiastic, they're motivated a lot of the time to want to do the work. They'll work for practically nothing. So you can understand why businesses taking advantage of them, and the government will pay you to take them as well. So it's win-win for you. You can definitely see it from both perspectives there. So let's just have a look at these ones. So which type of training do you think these organisations are more likely to do, on the job or off the job? What about McDonald's? Is it on the job or off the job? Well, McDonald's is probably a combination of the two, and a lot of these will be, but some of them are more specific because they won't just throw you in. It will be more on the job training for McDonald's, but you will have the health and safety stuff that's off the job as well. Next is probably going to be on the job, isn't it? They're going to train, you only got to fold stuff up or move stuff and things like that. Ashton Accountants is going to be off the job. They're not going to train you in accountancy on the job, are they? Oh yeah, well. We'll just let a trainee do these. Tony and Guy, the hairdressers is an interesting one because it's kind of both, isn't it? I mean, you've kind of got an element of on-the-job training, but mostly off the job because you do go on the college courses and things to get good at hairdressing and things like that. You don't just want to let someone random on someone's hair, but then you've got a little bit aspect of that. Same with teachers. Mostly off the job, but then you've also got a big chunk of on-the-job training as well because of the teacher training and stuff. You've probably come into contact with trainee teachers. We all did that at one point, didn't we? For free. Yeah, getting us free labour again. It's all an opportunity to get us to do free labour, isn't it? Okay, this is a little activity for you to have a go at, decide which are costs and which are benefits, and write them in your pack or write them in your book or whatever it is that you're using. So should improve motivation and productivity. As I said, feel free to stop the stream. I'll go through them now, but feel free to. You can pretty much tell them from the wording of them, can't you? Can improve employee performance, yeah. So a benefit. Managers can believe that their degree of control and subordinates reduced, so it's a negative. Assist achievement of strategic objectives, benefit. Employees may be unavailable, negative. Once trained, they may leave for better jobs, negative. It uses up valuable resources, negative. Reputation for training can help attract and retain high-quality staff, positive. All right? So even if you don't know, and you can do that in an exam sometimes, you don't even have to read it properly, to be honest. As long as you can look for the obvious stuff, then, don't waste your time. Make sure you read it properly. But if it's a really obvious thing like that, try not to overthink it. Okay, so explain why the following groups may benefit from training then. All right. So what is it about these things that would allow them to benefit from training? If you got this in an exam, it'd be an interesting question, wouldn't it? So it says businesses training their staff. What is it about businesses? What do they get from it? Well, they get newly trained staff. So they get the most up-to-date training. They can feed you whatever the company line is at the minute. If they've got a new bit of marketing that they're doing, they can feed you that, can't you? And get you to give that out to new people. They can train you in the new technology that they're using, make sure that you're up to scratch, make sure you've got all this stuff. So it's really good from their perspective to be able to get the best quality. We know, remember, on quality control, total quality management, we want quality all the way through, customer service, blah blah blah, all the way from our suppliers all the way through to customer service. We want to be giving the best quality we can possibly do. So it gives us an opportunity to try and guarantee that quality, doesn't it? Employees receiving training, we've got the idea from a motivational perspective, if it's a benefit for us. We've got the idea that from our CV perspective, it's really good for us because it allows us to, develop our CV more effectively. A lot of people complain about that in work. what have I done to develop my CV in the last couple of years? You know, like, and people go, oh, well, I haven't really done anything. I haven't developed anything. I've not nothing new to put on, because we always want to feel like we're developing, don't we? So really, it can help us. You can also get some kind of, you know, physical qualification, which will help as well, won't it? Customers in the business, really good, because you're going to be getting better quality, you're going to be getting better services, you're going to be getting more knowledge from the person. They're not going to be the kind of person who goes, oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. Hopefully they're going to be able to help you and more efficiently satisfy the needs, whatever whatever your customers want you to do. And the government are going to be happier, because they're able to sort of shirk some of their responsibility in an extent, aren't they, for education to the country onto employers, getting people employed, getting people more things. The more likely is, if you do well in this job, the more likely you are to be kept on for the job and be more effective like that. Okay, so wide range of them, as I said, they're your stakeholders, aren't they? So there's a wide range of different things that are affecting our stakeholders at that time. Okay, second one. So that's your training. Okay, 3 different ones: induction training, on-the-job training, off-the-job training, apprenticeships. Sorry, 4 different ones. And remember, apprenticeships can be, you know, sort of classic apprenticeships or modern apprenticeships. You get subsidised by the government for doing modern apprenticeships, but it used to be more of a skills-based thing. Now it's just like a training way of getting people into work, isn't it? Now, the second bit we're going to talk about is appraisals, and I don't know if you've had an appraisal before. You might not have, but you probably we could class anytime you had a meeting with your teacher, parents' evening. That's an appraisal. You know, so let's have a think about it from that perspective. So everybody has probably been through one at least, where they go through it, and it says, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to explain what is meant by an appraisal, explain the different methods of appraisal, including superiors assessment, peer assessment, self-assessment, 360-degree feedback, or whatever it's called. Understand how appraisal can benefit both the business and its employees, evaluate the importance and impact of appraisals for a business and its stakeholders. So, I can't show you, but I'm going to put this in the description. Please have a look at this. I love this bit of film. The Office is fantastic. If you've ever worked in an office, you'll really, you know, find a connection to this program. I know lots of people say the American one and that. I've not really seen that, but the British one is fantastic, and this is where it's originally come from. So have a look at it, because it's fantastic, and I'll put it in the description. Have a look at Big Keith's appraisal. So this is what it is. It says, in a process of assessing the effectiveness of employees. All right. So evaluating the usefulness of an employee to the business, usually done through a one-to-one meeting with a line manager. Okay. So in your experience as a student, or if your past experience, you might remember from parents' evening. That's very much like an appraisal, isn't it? You sit down with your teacher or your manager, and you go through what's gone well, what could be better. So it can be a positive thing. It can definitely be a positive thing, you know. And usually I think, well, you shouldn't be waiting for an appraisal to tell me negative things. If I'm doing something wrong, then you should have told me before now. It should. So, and the same about parents' evening as well. I always say to my students and the parents of students as well, you know, you should never be surprised on parents' evening, because that means that they've not been keeping in touch with you and things like that. So keep that in mind when you're talking about apprenticeship. I'm not saying people can't, you know, wait until you've got your appraisal to give you a good beasting. I'm sure they can, but I think it would be bad business to do that. Who am I? Staff should be given regularly appraised by their direct line manager. Remember, it should be by someone who directly knows you, someone who is physically working with you, not just some randomer. Involves regular meetings, once every 6 months or on an annual basis. It's usually annually, unless you have just started the job, and then they tend to do more regular ones just to check up on you and things like that. An employee may be judged on a range of different tasks completed, you know, and things like being on time, smartness, that kind of stuff as well, depending on the job, obviously. Training needs are discussed and career prospects examined. So is the business wanting to keep you? What can they do to keep you? Are you thinking of leaving? That kind of stuff. So it's also a fact-finding mission for the business. Within the staff appraisal interview, bonus earnings may also be set. And obviously, if especially in sales and things like that, in teaching, we don't get bonuses for stuff. It wouldn't matter how brilliant or terrible we did. We'd probably get told off if we did terrible, but we wouldn't get any bonuses or anything like that. So, yeah. But in some jobs, you do. It's good that you don't, to be honest, though, because there's too many things. A lot of people, I know we get blamed for a lot of things as teachers, but there's a hell of a lot of things that are going on in people's lives, especially at the moment, that you just don't know about, do you? And I think that's a highlight some of the issues that we have as teachers all the time, because you don't know what's happening in a 16 to 19-year-old's life. It's quite a turbulent time, if I remember my life, and I was in a very quite stable position. Staff appraisal is sometimes referred to as performance appraisal or performance management. We call it PMR, performance management review. The success of the staff appraisal in the workplace depends on the staff acting upon the problems which are highlighted. So and it's two ways, because it's an opportunity for you to speak to your manager as well, bring something up which is bothering you, and if they don't react on it, then that will massively affect your motivation and things like that. So it's important to remember that. To be successful, appraisal systems must be based on clear criteria for appraisal, set agreed and understand targets, and managers must be trained to solve problems that can arise as a result of any poor performance indicated in appraisal. So they have to react to the situation. A lot of the time they don't. A lot of time it really demotivates people. People get really upset with these. But it is something that you need to be sensible about. And if you are doing an appraisal, actually, spend the time thinking about it and not just going through the motions, because a lot of the time it is literally just going through the motions. Couple of different types of appraisals. We've got management or superior assessment. We've got peer assessment, self-assessment, and 360-degree feedback. So, what are the advantages of them? Okay, let's just really, really quickly go over these, actually, just because I think we're going to go into more detail in a second, but I'll just really, really quick. So superior assessment is the one like you might have experienced at school, where you've got your, immediate superior, your teacher who's, going through it, or your manager who's going through stuff with you. Peer assessment is when you get someone on the same level as you to assess how you're doing. Not always the best one, that. I mean, it's a difficulty. You can't really avoid the fact that people have their own opinions on stuff, and they have their own reasons for doing things as well. So someone might have a vested interest in making you look stupid to try and detract information away from themselves, perhaps, or you just might not get on with someone. If you're willing to go and wash your manager's car at a weekend, then you're probably going to do better in your appraisal. That's the opposite of what you're supposed to do. Self-assessment. So we've got, you going in and actually assessing how you think you've done and, regretting. There's always an element of that. And 360-degree feedback is where you do it from all angles. You ask a range of people, and that tends to be higher up that they would bother doing that. The higher up you go, the more involved you get. So what are the benefits of appraisals? Well, we've got the motivation aspect. If it's taken well, and if it's you've got a good appraisal, people are really positive about you. They act on anything that you're worried about and things like that, can really motivate you. Improves performance. It can do potentially if you need to kick up the arse a little bit. Allows the setting of achievable targets, so you can feel more comfortable about what you're supposed to be doing for the next year. Identifies training needs, can potentially get you that training you wanted. Identifies potential for promotion. That's a big one, isn't it? So if you say that you're interested in promotion and your manager says, yeah, well, I think you're ready to be moved up the ranks and take more responsibility, then that would really motivate you, gives you that opportunity to actually tell them that you're interested. Or simultaneously, you might say, I'm not interested in promotion. I'm really happy with where I am. I don't really want to, because a lot of people don't want to move up the ranks, and there's no need to do that, is there? It's a different job. Allows those to understand the job to give full value to the work done as well. That's why we don't have randomers doing it. We don't want HR doing it who don't know you personally, who don't work with the job. I know, if I work in the business department, I know what being a business teacher is like. So if someone's done particularly good or bad, then I can comment on that, can't I? And that helps them and helps me. Enables achievable bonuses to be earned. I said only in certain jobs, but yeah, okay. Another one here, this is sort of like the negatives of appraisals and going through that. He sat there with Gareth, that's the guy on the right, going through some of the negative, like saying how, oh, well, you're not supposed to do appraisals like this, but. So have a little look at that one. It's brilliant, that one. I love that one as well. Okay, so disadvantages can cause tension. People don't like being reviewed. Puts workers under pressure to continue improving performance, and that's very. It's good for the business to an extent, because you want people to be improving their themselves all the time and improving effectiveness, becoming more efficient, saving money, cost cutting, that kind of stuff. But there's got to be a limit to it, hasn't there? It's quite difficult to continue doing it. It's very stressful if you're already working at 110% and they're telling you, oh well, we need you to improve it anymore. You might just think, I just can't cope. It might cause you could have a breakdown. You might have mental health issues because of it, and it does happen. So it's something you've got to be careful of. Places too much power in the hands of managers. I've definitely seen this before, where they become a bit like, oh yeah, I'm the big I am, because they're going to do an appraisal and they can tell you what to do. That's the problem with it, isn't it? You've got the I mean, as I said, and that's the problem of having good management, isn't it? Because if you have a good manager who's doing appraisal, they will see it for what it is and take the opportunity to, give you advantage, give you help or support or whatever it is. But negative ones will see it as an opportunity to give you a good beasting. And that's just the way it is. Sometimes it's just, people are funny, aren't they? Only viable if actions discussed are acted upon as well. So that's from both perspectives, isn't it? If you tell your manager that you're not happy about something and then they completely ignore you, then what was the point of the process to begin with? It's just a waste of time for everyone. Okay, so the importance and impact of appraisals depend on the business and its various stakeholders, can depend on a number of factors. These include the purpose of the system, the control, the openness, and the participation. So we're going to have to, that's your AO4 essentially, isn't it? So you look at the situation, the purpose of the system, why are we bothering doing that? Is it to make a manager feel good about themselves? Is it to motivate staff? Is it to give staff, is it genuinely because we want feedback or not? The control of the management over employees, is it something to, are we trying to dominate people? Are we trying to get more control, less control? Are we trying to give more autonomy? And openness and participation as well. Are people actually up for it, or are people annoyed by this kind of stuff? It could go either way, couldn't it? And that, ladies and gents, brings us to the end of training and appraisal. It's not a particularly, really difficult bit of the spec, to be honest. It's one that you will have experienced yourself. Usually, obviously, it takes a little bit longer because we watch some videos, we have a little bit of discussion, but as a bit of revision, it's a pretty good one, isn't it? So one of the things I just want to draw your attention to is on-the-job training, off-the-job training, apprenticeships, induction training. If you remember about the other ones as well, we've got 360 degrees where you get all the way around you, below you, above you, review you. You've got your peer one where people on the same level review you. You've got your superior one that the people above you review you, or you've got the self-assessment where you yourself evaluate what you've been doing. Okay, but the main thing with this is to understand the importance of what the advantages are, but put them in context for people. Is it really important now? Is it really important for this business? Is it really important in this certain circumstance? Okay, so we're going to have a little look at the news. Let's have a look at what's happening in Borisland. Let's refresh and see what's going on. Possible lockdown, workplace rules revealed, reduced hot desking, staggered shifts, continued home working as part of the draft government plan. This will be interesting. It's not going to be the same world we're living in, is it? Theatres could be closed until next year. Let's have a look at this one. Oh no, let's have a look at this one. It says online students face full tuition fees. University students in England will still have to pay full tuition fees even if the courses are taught online in the autumn, the government has said. We don't believe students are entitled to reimbursement if the quality is there. Yeah. But the university sector's request of £2 billion bailout has been rejected. The universities have warned of financial danger from the reduction in overseas students because of the coronavirus. Really, really important, this. This is stakeholders in action, isn't it? We don't think about the importance of bringing overseas students, from universities specifically, really, really funded by overseas students a lot of the time because it's so expensive for them to be here, and they're very, very important, a very important stakeholder at this point. University campuses have been closed by the pandemic, and there is uncertainty for students whether or not there will be in-person teaching in autumn or whether courses will be taught fully or partly online. The university's minister said that no formal decision had been taken on next academic year, but if courses are taught online and students are really getting the quality, then they're really getting the course which is fit for purpose, then they would not get a discount on fees. It's an interesting concept, this, isn't it? Because I know you will probably see it from the student's perspective if you were a student yourself, but if I'm a teacher, I'll be looking at it from the teacher's perspective as well. it's going to be hard to maintain quality. Is this the same quality as you would be getting in class from me? Well, I hope so. I mean, you'd probably be getting a more in-depth view of it, because we'd be doing more than one lesson at a time on things, and we get that discussion aspect, and I think it's so important that we get the discussion rather than me just rattling on about it. I can simulate the discussion, which I try to do, but people asking questions and getting involved in things like that, it's so important, and you've got that social aspect to it. But I don't think that there is any reason why it would be a massive reduction in quality. The main issue with this one, though, is, and I think a lot of businesses are starting to do this, are starting to have a look at whether it is viable to really continue doing this. Do we really need teachers in classrooms? Do we need people in actual offices, or can we close the places and do it from home? Potentially, I don't know. I mean, maybe as long as you get paid the same and you get the same holidays, I don't know. Would people care? I mean, the amount of time people wish they were at home and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is more difficult, isn't it? Because you've got kids and you've got other responsibilities at home and things like that. But I don't know. It's a really difficult one. I think some students have been saying that they really find it difficult to work at home. Others say that they'd prefer it. So, what can you do? Let's have a look. It says these are all these, aren't they? So let's have a look at business news. Oh, not seen this. Let's have a look at this. It says mobile operator O2 may set to be merged with broadband giant Virgin Media and create one of the country's largest entertainment and telecom firms. A tie-up between the two major players in Britain's telecom and media sector would create a major rival to BT. Spanish firm Telefonica, which owns O2, confirmed that it was in talks with Virgin owner Liberty Global. The company stressed that the negotiations were ongoing and there was no guarantee that they would reach a deal. O2, which provides networks for Tesco Mobile, giffgaff and Sky Mobile, is the UK's largest phone company with around 34 million users. Virgin has about 6 million broadband and cable TV customers and another 3 million mobile users. A tie-up between the two would increase the pressure on BT, which owns the UK's second largest mobile network, EE. BT has 28 million mobile TV and broadband customers. It's interesting, isn't it? See, it says Telefonica tried to sell O2 to the owner of Three for 10.3 billion in 2015, but the deal was blocked by the European Commission over concerns that it would have left three major mobile phone operators in the UK. It's an important point. If we talked about the CMA, this is the European Commission. That's the version of their own version of the Competition and Mergers Authority, who stop these kind of things. So even if they say this, it doesn't mean that they are actually going to do it. Does it? It doesn't mean that they're going to actually be able to do it, because other stakeholders have to be thought about and things like that. Barclays gets 200 loan applications a minute. The new loans are designed for small firms to aim speed up its application process. What's this one? McDonald's seeks rent cut from UK landlords. McDonald's is in talks with some of the landlords in the UK about cutting rent payments, and the fast food chain prepares to reopen some of its sites. Businesses face the next quarterly bill on the 24th of June, when they are due to pay for the next 3 months. McDonald's says it's paid in full for the current quarter. However, it says given the unprecedented situation, it's in talk with the landlord about how they could offer support on rent. McDonald's has closed all its outlets in the UK. A spokesperson for the company said, "We have opened a dialogue with some of our landlords to discuss how they might offer support on the rent and services charges for a short period during our restaurants." I think that's reasonable, isn't it? But also, you've got to look at it from that's the best way of doing it. The way that they're doing it is more sensible than Asda, where Asda have just forced it on the stakeholders. These are trying to implement it, and realistically, they will be pushing the pressure on the fact that we're McDonald's, look how much money we give you and things like that. They will be, they're really thinking. If I was dealing with McDonald's, I'd give them whatever they want if I could afford to do it, because I wouldn't want to lose them. They would be such a powerful customer to have. So yeah, it'd be an interesting one. It says Into, which owns Manchester Trafford Centre, declined to name what's this one? Shopping centre Into said it recently was considering legal action against some big brands who have money but are not engaging in rent negotiations. Interesting. Into, which owns Manchester Trafford Centre in Lakeside in Essex, declined to name the brands. Into said that they were failing as well, didn't they, recently? We said that on the stream a couple of weeks ago. So potentially they're failing because people aren't paying their bills. What else we got? Let's do one more. Rolls-Royce to cut up to 8,000 jobs. Rolls-Royce could axe up to 8,000 jobs, and the aircraft manufacturers were forced to pull production during the COVID-19 pandemic. The aeroplane engine maker employs 52,000 people worldwide, with 23,000 staff in the UK. According to the company source, senior leaders have been warned cuts could be as high as 8,000, but efforts to mitigate the impact are ongoing. It announced it plans to save 750 million, but now needs to take further action. Rolls-Royce is expected to tell staff that the actual number of job losses by the end of May. The aviation industry has been hit badly by the pandemic as flights across the world have been suspended. This is a good point, isn't it? And this is what we're talking about, of we're living in a different world. Hold on to the stuff you've got, make sure you're okay, your jobs, your education, the things that you're doing. It's really important that you're able to pay your bills. It's really important that you're able to continue doing what you're doing, and not just thinking that we're still in the pre-pandemic world where, jobs were easy to come by and stuff like that. I think that you're going to have a hell of a lot more competition than we did. Okay, guys, so slightly shorter than usual, 50 minutes today. We did well, got onto it and, got through the stuff. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope you're keeping well, and I hope to see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. when we're going through the next topic. Okay. Remember, you can get in touch with me by email. You can get in touch with me in the comments if you need anything. But as I said, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.